Welcome, welcome. This is Kim Mattis from Frame of Mind Coaching, and I am the host of Resilience Radio, where I interview professionals who are experts at crushing the tough stuff. Before I bring on our guest, I want to give you a journaling question of the day, one that you can write down, and I'd love for you to journal the response and send it my way. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Here is your journaling question of the day. How do others treat me? Am I happy with it? And why is it that they treat me the way they do? If I like it, what leads me to being treated that way? And if I don't like it, how would I rather be treated? And what can I do to encourage that change? All right, send it my way, kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Today, my guest is Tawnya Starr. Tawnya, are you with me?
I am. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning. Welcome, welcome. For those of you who are listening in the afternoon, good afternoon. You are from an organization called Firespring. Is that right?
That is correct.
So tell us, what is Firespring? What do you do?
Well, that's a great question. Firespring is a marketing services company with a focus on working with organizations that are purpose-driven companies and helping companies really focus on their why rather than their what. And we have a second discipline within Firespring, software as a service, creating pre-developed websites and tools and software for nonprofit organizations to allow them to focus more on their why rather than the what.
Okay, so let's get more specific. You work with purpose-driven organizations. Can you give us an example? Just get very tangible and specific so that people who are listening can really wrap their arms around what you do, who you do it for, and how you do it.
Okay. So working with small to medium-sized businesses who at their core have made a decision, either they're a part of the conscious capitalism movement, they're a certified B Corp, or within their own organization, they have put forth a prioritization that their company is going to put purpose before profits. It does not mean that they don't want to be a profitable company, but they want to be purposeful and intentional with their employees, within their community, and with their customers. And a lot of companies that are focusing on having intent and purpose and making a difference are struggling with how to really promote that and how to connect with their customers and sharing the message and organizing the company, putting together a structure that allows the company to operate with these guiding principles. And Firespring helps with all of those components.
Okay. So can you give us an example of one of your clients, if you're comfortable doing that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give two examples here. We have a nonprofit organization, St. Baldrick's. Hopefully our audience has heard of St. Baldrick's. St. Baldrick's is an organization. They are the largest funder of research for childhood cancer, only second to the government.
Wow.
They are a client of ours, and we have worked with St. Baldrick's, one, to create their technology that allows them to raise the funds to support research, and two, to put together and help with them in a strategy that aligns their mission with the audience that they're connecting with around the country and globally. Another example is a client and this is a newer one that I'd like to share that goes to a completely different extreme. I would say a middle-sized company in the way of revenue, and they have a series of radio stations throughout the Midwest, and they made a decision a few years ago that they wanted to be something greater in the communities that they served than operating just a radio station. They wanted to have impact with their team members. They wanted to have impact in the community. They wanted to have impact with the businesses that advertise with their organization, right, through the radio channels. And they are a company that is evergreen and wanting to have longevity with their company. And longevity, they want to be around for 100 years. That's really significant in that segment, because we don't know where radio will be in 5 to 10 years. But really giving thought and being intentional in the difference that they feel responsible for as it relates to the above entities. So we have partnered with them in one, helping them with execution of a operating system for the business that what we work with is EOS, the entrepreneurial operational system. And then in addition to that, so executing that with their executive team, their mid-team, and their team members in all of their locations. And then helping and identify the marketing strategy and execution of the marketing strategy as they're going through this transition from what is a really conservative type of industry, media, and being more progressive and having impact in the community. So
so I want to stop for a minute, because I think our audience has heard of the EOS system before, and I just want to go back and revisit that for a minute, because it's a big idea, particularly for entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their business. And so the EOS system is essentially a concept created by
Gino Wickman
and Mike Payton. I guess they're working together. And it's a layout, it's a formula, it's a strategy for looking at your business in different components and making sure all those components are working in tandem. Would that be accurate in your opinion?
Yes. And the word that we use is framework. It is a framework for the company that, especially for entrepreneurs, so many of us are visionaries. We don't necessarily like to follow rules and guidelines, yet for our businesses to hit a trajectory that we envision, we need framework that can help us stay on the rails for that trajectory. And EOS is designed to do that in a simple, straightforward manner that focuses on accountability, roles, what is it to lead, manage, hold people accountable, and allowing this framework for every member of an organization, whether there are 2 team members or there are 1,000 team members. It is simple, it's scalable, and is a rhythm, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, that allows the visionary to come together with the team to identify where we are headed and make sure that everyone is aligned and in this rhythm to get there.
Perfect. So you run a sizable company. You have how many people in your organization?
200.
200. Mm-hmm. So, and you've been at it for how long?
Let's see, 2000. We started... This iteration of our business started in 2000, and that's when I came in, and my husband and partner, co-founder, we started in 2000.
Okay, so you work with your husband?
I do.
So I work with my husband too. What's that like?
Oh, it is truly a joy and an absolute pleasure and a tremendous opportunity to work with an individual who I think is one of the most amazing people that I've had the opportunity to meet in my lifetime, and has incredible vision. He is the true visionary of our company, and he elevates me in so many ways that I never imagined prior to working together. And at the same time, with that, I am entrepreneurial. He is entrepreneurial, and there can be conflict and challenges, and we don't always agree. And
So we have a lot of family-owned businesses who are listening to this particular podcast. How do you deal with those conflicts? How do you deal with those areas where you're not on the same page necessarily? Is there a method for coming to agreement? Do you need to come to agreement? Does he have ultimate, call it veto power? How does that work out?
Yes, those are all really great questions. I think the most important component, Kim, especially for Jay and myself, is we have to be in alignment as to where we want to be. What is the end goal? Whether it is in hiring decisions, the growth of the business, who we're serving, what our product offering is. If we're not in alignment on that, as to where we want to be and what those end objectives are, Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. There is absolutely no way that we can come into alignment on anything else. So we are always able to do that. And one of us may have to compromise, but we typically are fairly aligned there. So that's the easy part. How we achieve that end objective is where we sometimes run into conflict. And we had to early on identify what our strengths are, which they are different. Jay focuses on the vision. He focuses on the interaction with our operations. I focus on execution, management, accountability. That is really my strength, and problem solving and process oriented. So with respect to one another's strengths, we will, when we are in conflict on direction, we have made an agreement to have a discussion that can be healthy, sometimes contentious, but in the end, we'll give consideration to the individual's strengths who need to be considered for the decision we're trying to reach.
So staying in your own lane helps a lot.
Yes. Okay. And sometimes, Kim, in transparency, and I feel most of us that have been in family businesses together, there are times where we are not in our lanes. We cross the lane, we create issues and have conflict, and it can lead to an unhealthy relationship in the work environment and at home.
Right.
And we have had periods of time where we've gone through that and had to make some hard decisions in what our roles and responsibilities were. And we have a really hard and fast rule, and I'll say I have the hard and fast rule: we do not bring business home. Home is home. It is our sanctuary. If we don't have that line in place, Kim, work will consume our lives.
So you don't bring work home, or it's your hard and fast rule. Is it his hard and fast rule too?
No, he would talk about business 24/7.
So how do you cut him off?
I'm going to tell you how I cut him off. And I have a really great example of this. We are 2 nights ago going to bed. One of our key team members has decided that she needs to take time for her family and is going to be leaving Firespring for another organization that she can work far fewer hours. And as we are getting into bed, Jay asks me if I feel one of our other team members is going to apply for that position, and is that a good move and I had to share, Jay, it is 10 o'clock. I am going to bed. We are not going to have this conversation right now. Let's have it first thing in the morning.
When he says okay?
And he says okay.
So I'm amazed that you're in bed by 10. So high five for you on that one.
Right, but I start early.
You start early. Okay. So I want to share with you, because, in my world, it's my company, but my husband works with me side by side. We're growing the company together. I am what you would call the visionary. He's the what do you call it? Integrator. He's the guy, he's the operations guy, he's the systems guy. I'm the one who's looking at growth. He's the one who's looking at making sure I don't spend too much money. And that's where our friction lies sometimes. And it's very interesting because, I'm the type of person who sees an opportunity and I say, let's try, let's experiment, let's run a pilot. And you got to spend money sometimes on pilots. And a lot of pilots fail. And my husband looks at all the failed pilots and says, what the heck are you spending money on now? Right? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so we literally, I hired a business coach, and I spoke to the business coach. I said, this is an issue. I want to go try things. He said, it's your job to try things. But my husband, my business partner, my, compatriot here, is really uncomfortable. And every time I want to go try things, he, creates a whole big stink. Let's call it a stink.
Yes.
And it comes from the best place. It comes from the most concerned, loving, even strategic place, saying, what are you trying now? And does it make sense to be trying this thing? And literally the business coach turned to him and said, it's her job to try things. It's her job, because some things will work. And that's how you've grown up until now. Every time you try something new, either a big door opens or not, right? But you don't know until you try it. And so
correct.
That was a game changer for us, actually, to have a third party who kind of intervened and said, you need to let her do what she does. This is the visionary in action. And on the flip side, it's use him as a sounding board to make sure that this is a good idea and consistent with the overall strategy. And so that really, really helped us a lot. But it was an area of struggle, of friction for us for quite a long time.
I can imagine. I can only imagine that you felt, maybe the word that comes to mind for me is suffocated. Like, you're just wanting to go and do what it is that you do, and you have this person who's just holding you back, and it's like, let me breathe, let me be.
And the other thing is, in your head, as I'm sure every entrepreneur can relate to, hey, I grew this company so I could do whatever I want to do. Why do I need to answer to anybody, right? And so that's a big, huge component of being an entrepreneur, the friction that entrepreneurs experience, which is their high need for independence, and yet inherent in running a business is the need to be accountable to the customers, to your team, to your partners, etc. And in the personality of an entrepreneur, therein lies some interesting friction.
Yes. And that's where EOS really can be helpful for true entrepreneurial driven organizations, that it is a structure that allows for some of that accountability and the checks and balances, and allows the visionary to have freedom. And where I feel a challenge can come into play is in our example, Jay and I are both the visionaries, different skill sets, but I would love to be an integrator, but it could create a lot of conflict within the organization. So, one has to give. Like, who's going to take the lead on that?
Right.
And yes, but coming back to your point, I think that's exciting for you and your husband that you have a third party that can provide input and another perspective. We all need that.
It was very useful for us. So I want to switch gears here, because over and above the fact that you're running this very successful company and making a massive difference, and you have a big team, you're also an interesting human being doing some pretty interesting things. One of your passions is Burning Man. And so for people who don't have any idea what that is, can you please describe it and describe your involvement in that particular event?
Yes. Okay, so this is a great question, Kim. We've just returned from Burning Man this year, and it is such a hard thing to describe. Several of the individuals that were around us who were attending Burning Man for the first time, they have now gone back to what we refer to as the default world, and trying to explain to friends and family and others what Burning Man is like is just almost impossible. So I will make an attempt. Burning Man is a festival of art and individuality that happens in the Nevada desert once a year for the course of 7 days. It is in an area where there is no access to electricity, water, food, or otherwise. Coming to Burning Man, they have 10 principles. I'm not going to go into the principles today, but I would encourage the readers to go to burningman.org and learn a little bit more about Burning Man. A city is erected in the middle of the desert. It's referred to as Black Rock City. 70,000 people come, and in this city, each individual is completely responsible for themselves. At the same time, it is about inclusion, sharing, self-expression, and there are so many activities and festivities that happen during the day, from learning how to do your taxes. Someone might have a workshop on how to do your taxes in a tent in the middle of the desert while the playa dust is blowing. Or there are some more exotic classes that one could attend on, I don't know how conservative we need to be in our comments, but I'll share genital massage. Perhaps you would like to learn more about that. Or you can go out on the playa and interact and experience any one of 200 art installations that come from artists all over the world, completely donated, right? Wow. This is what is known as a gifting economy. There is all about decommoditization, because this all developed from the man, right? Down with the man. It started in San Francisco with a small group of people who had lost their jobs, were struggling to find work, and just frustrated in general. So they just had this little get together on the beach in San Francisco where they burned an effigy of what was corporate America and the man, and the following grew to what it is today. And at night, the playa turns into this amazing, magical, most beautiful spectacle of color and neon, because these art cars come from all over the world. And an art car could be small, it could be large. It's a funky vehicle that moves across the playa desert, and they have DJs. They fly in and they play music at night, but this is not a music festival. And they're covered in crazy designs, and I mean, just breathtaking and magical, and the most amazing spectacle that one can imagine. By the end of this event, we are all covered in playa dust and dirt, and we don't have access necessarily to showers unless you have an RV or an established camp, right? Because everything we need, we have to bring in with us. Everything we bring with us, we have to take out. Mm-hmm. And so at the end, it's, oh my gosh, we're dirty. We're ready for a shower, ready for, a really nice meal. And at the same time, our lives have been changed. My life has changed. My husband's life has changed by the people that we've interacted with, the openness of individuals sharing. And there's a sense of freedom that comes from anonymity, because really no one knows each other on the playa. And people tend to wear outfits that some people use the word costumes. That's frowned upon. Really just these outfits that are a higher expression of ourselves, right? And
so I need a little more concrete detail. You go to this place, there's no water, there's no electricity. So what did you go in? Did you have an RV? Did you have a tent? Like, what do you eat?
right. Okay. Kim, I'm going to be 50 in less than 4 weeks. I am beyond camping in a tent. I'm not doing it. We go in an RV. We have the opportunity to go in a nice RV. And with the RV, once we get there and we set it up, Kim, we have to put foil insulator taped over all of the windows of the RV with blue painter's tape on every possible seam and seal around the RV. We put
Why?
Yeah, let me get to that. We cover the top of the RV with what looks like giant aluminum foil. Mm-hmm. So that is intended to reflect the sun to keep the RV cooler during the day. The foil on the windows is intended to reduce the amount of heat that comes into the RV during the day, because this is the desert and it can be very hot. And these are harsh conditions. So maybe 90, 95 degrees during the day. The painter's tape over the vents is to prevent the playa dust from just infiltrating the RV. It's because it gets everywhere. The playa dust gets everywhere. Yes. Okay. So we set up the RV. We bring tons of water with us. I meticulously plan our meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For breakfast one day, we may have French toast and whipped cream and fresh berries. One evening for dinner, we had lamb shawarma with tabbouleh and hummus and dolmas, and it was so delicious.
You bring all this stuff with you?
I bring it with me, yes.
So it's pre-prepared. It's already ready.
Pre-prepared. I do bring a little grill that I'm able to fire up and share. We bring food to share with individuals that are around us and close to us. They may not have lamb shawarma, for example. They might have Chef Boyardee ravioli, or what is it? SpaghettiOs. Wow. So we love to share. I'm intentional in bringing some of the finest chocolate that I can get. There's a wonderful chocolatier in Reno that I usually stop at and grab chocolate before we head out. And we always bring wonderful champagne so that we can have a toast at sunset with our neighbors and talk about what our experiences have been during the day.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, and then just one more thing, the shower. You have an RV, there's a shower in your RV?
Correct.
Good.
But we don't use it on a daily basis because remember, we're in the middle of the desert. And while there are companies that come around periodically to check your water, you can buy water from these services. Right. We also have to have it drained. Right. And so we need to be very conservative and mindful of what we're using.
Okay. And so what is the draw to this event? It sounds a little like Woodstock.
Yes, it does. Now, but why do you say that?
Why do I say that it sounds like Woodstock?
Yes.
I don't know, like from here it sounds like love, peace, rock and roll music. I don't know if there's drugs, possibly, probably, maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like it just feels like very, that open, free, expressive kind of vibe. I imagine people wearing, tall hats and bell bottoms. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, that is very gracious. You will likely not see bell bottoms. You might see there is definitely a degree of nudity or scantily clad individuals. A lot of scantily clad individuals and some beautiful, beautiful people. The draw for us, and I would imagine it is for others as well, how often in our lives, Kim, and I get really emotional about this, do we have an opportunity to be in an environment and 100% be who we are. Just be who you are without any judgment, without any expectation. It is one of the most freeing, liberating experiences I have ever experienced in my life.
Mm. It's interesting, right? Because as a coach, what I want to do with people I work with is give them that specific, not opportunity, that view of the world, that, perhaps it's even permission, maybe even obligation to be who they are completely. Right, without judgment, and sometimes what is required is that permission. So it's very interesting because there's an environment here you're describing, which is very interesting. It's very, like I have a picture in my mind. It's probably completely wrong, but I still have a picture in my mind of what it's like, and it sounds to me like the draw for you is freedom. And as a coach, I want to create freedom in people's lives exactly where they are. So it's interesting because what you're really describing is the challenge that most of us have, feeling freedom exactly where we are.
Right. So here's this opportunity that opens the door for that liberty, because it truly is liberating. Right. I mean, there are no rules in Black Rock City other than self-reliance, MOOP, matter out of place. Whatever you bring in, you take out. You don't leave any trash, no litter. I mean, it's fastidious because the BLM would no longer allow Burning Man access to this location.
Right.
So otherwise, and you have to drive 5 miles an hour. That's it, right? There really are no rules. There are no laws, right? Some of the art installations that are in place and that are designed to be interactive, like this giant teeter-totter swing set that people can get on, it's kind of dangerous. No, it's a lot dangerous. If you hit the ground too hard, you could break a leg. If you're climbing up one of the sculptures, maybe there's a sharp piece, you could cut yourself. But you're responsible for the experience, whether it's the art, the interaction with people. If you want to sleep all day and dance all night, if you want to participate in the temple, which we didn't even talk about, the spiritual, most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life, it is so liberating, and the experience is completely our own.
So I'm going to ask you another question. So you're describing a place where you go and there's no judgment, but you and we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, we're in a world where we need to have judgment, and we have judgment. We're critical, right? We make critical decisions every single day. How do you suddenly step into an environment and withhold your judgment?
This is a really great question, and Jay and I have talked about this specifically because there is an aspect of hypocrisy with that, right? And you were right. And I tend to be a judgmental person. I have very high standards of those around me, yet I am an accepting person. So now I'm in this environment where everyone is equal, and what I feel, Kim, is Burning Man my experience with Burning Man elevates me to being a better person. I find when I come back that I am more mindful of being less judgmental. I find that I am more mindful and intentional in being accepting of ideas of others in my work environment and in my personal life. I find that my mind is much more open, which I feel I'm a pretty open-minded person. I probably wouldn't go to Burning Man, but it elevates me every year we go. And we try, both Jay and myself, to be intentional in applying some of these principles that we've experienced into the business. And then the challenge is, how do we transfer that to our team members and encouraging them to be more open, more free, and being more true to themselves?
Do you think that it has had a positive impact on your bottom line?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We spoke about this on our drive, 22-hour drive, by the way, from Reno to Lincoln, and how is there a way to track that? There's definitely a benefit in what we are bringing back to our team members, although they may not understand that. They think we've probably been in a drug-induced, crazy fantasy world for a week. And I feel that it does. We are not able to quantify that at this time. But as we continue to go to Burning Man, Kim, follow up with me and maybe I'll be able to give you a number on that.
So I have a trick question for you. On your 22-hour drive, was that considered work hours or off work hours? Because we're talking about work, right? It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Facetious question.
No, I love that because those are considered work hours for us.
Okay.
Because we actually are conducting work. We travel with a MiFi and we take turns driving so that we can communicate. We can follow up with emails. We're conducting business on the phone.
I was just teasing you.
Yeah, but once we hit the playa, we're off. It's off.
Okay. All right. This has been a really, really interesting conversation. As we turn the corner, you've got a coach on the line, one who works with entrepreneurs just like you. And my focus is on working with leaders and looking at how they think and how their thinking impacts their outcomes. You're a very interesting thinker, but here you go. You have a coach on the line. Is there a question that you have for this particular coach?
All right. I've been giving thought to this. This is a lot of pressure, by the way, Kim. So my question for the coach is how do we as entrepreneurs, when we are in a situation and we know what needs to be done, we know without question the direction to go, and do not have alignment within our leadership and management team, what is the best approach we can take to either creating alignment or making a decision and moving on?
Okay, good. I love this question. Great question. And by the way, just so everyone knows, I do not receive these questions in advance. So this is the first time I've heard this question, okay? So very often, even the way you frame the question is very interesting, is when we know what to do, there's a doing focus, right? There's a doing focus. When we know what to do, how do we essentially get everybody to do what we want them to do? I mean, you didn't ask it quite that way, but that's really what you're trying to get at. And so what I want you to understand is doing follows thought. First we think, first we have beliefs, and then our actions follow. And if our beliefs don't match the action, right, there's going to be, let's call it a bottleneck. And so as leaders, what we need to do when we see other people not on the same page, not willing to take the action we know is right, what we want to do is understand their thinking. So rather than force the issue, rather than get frustrated, the first thing we need to do is assume positive intent. In other words, assume the other person or people around us all want to reach a significant goal. And then what we want to do is understand the beliefs they have that are clearly screaming, this doesn't feel right. And what we want to do is address the beliefs, not force the action. And so the conversation you need to have is really understanding how they see the world and how that view of the world is preventing them from getting on the same page as you. And you want to address their view of the world. You want to address their beliefs. You want to understand how they see things and understand how some of those beliefs are really limiting beliefs. And you want to help them address those limiting beliefs so that they get more comfortable with your idea. And then action follows. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And could I ask one addition to that as it relates to beliefs?
Yeah.
How do you define between ego versus beliefs when ego gets in the way of being on board and aligned?
So as the leader, you want to ignore ego. What does that mean? That means if you see someone's ego getting in the way, you have to perhaps see it, to say thank you for visiting, and you need to move it out of the way. Because if you see someone's ego in your way, what's happened is your ego has matched theirs. So what you need to do is is completely disregard what you think is coming at you and override it by assuming positive intent. In fact, assigning positive intent. And coming at it saying, I know that where you're coming from is from the purest, most good place. What happens when you do that? Ego dissolves. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Those are powerful words. Will you repeat those? So I want to capture that. I want our audience to capture that, because I know in my world, that advice you just gave to me, if I can deliver that consistently, I feel that I can I can influence change at a far greater ratio. So can you repeat that?
So let's back up. Okay. So what you see, you the leader, right? You, Tawnya, what you see in front of you is a reflection of your thinking. It's a reflection of your beliefs. So when you see someone coming to the table and you think, man, they have a high ego, that's a problem with your thinking. And that view of the other person will interfere with your ability to get onto the same page. So you need to clean up your thinking before you step into any conversation. Does that make sense?
Yes, easier said than done.
Yes.
Do you have any cleaner for me?
Yeah, the cleaner is I encourage my clients to journal, and one of the journaling exercises that you might want to do is say, what do I believe to be true about this person? And does that belief allow me to work cooperatively with that person? So if I think that person has a high ego, does that view of that person allow us to collaborate? Absolutely not. So what is a different view that I can have of this person? That this person really is goal-oriented, that they want to achieve a specific goal, that they are a good person, that they are well-intended, right? Positive intent, that's super important. So and they have a set of beliefs that prevent them from seeing the world in my way. So let me find out what those beliefs are. Because unless I address those beliefs, no change will happen. But step one is you must clean up your own thinking before stepping into any conversation. Always.
Do you have suggestions on how we can do that? How we as entrepreneurs can be mindful of cleaning up ourselves? Because I feel oftentimes lack self-awareness and just go in guns a-blazing. And if we can have cues to pause before we go in with the guns drawn. Great
question, man. You should be on my podcast all the time just asking the questions. So let me help you understand. When you don't feel good, when you feel agitated, when you feel frustrated, when you feel aggressive, when you feel like there's this clash, the feeling, the emotional state is an indicator of whether or not you're pointed in the right direction. So when you're at peace, when you're calm, when you're relaxed, you're pointed in the right direction. When you feel that internal friction, that tells you something's off. And what it really tells you is you're thinking about this in a way that causes you to feel bad. And that thinking needs to be addressed. So what's the cue? Your emotional state. When you're frustrated, you say, okay, hold on a second. I must be thinking about this in a way that's not leading me to where I want to go. How am I thinking about this? And if you take a piece of paper and a pencil and start writing it down, how am I thinking about this? What do I feel? How do I see this other person? And look at what you wrote down. Like, take a minute, go back, review what you wrote down and say, okay, I'm going to sort of try to take a little bit of an objective view. If someone else were writing this down about someone else, would this view enable them to create a partnership, a collaborative environment, right? So you're coaching yourself. Here's where coaching steps in, right? But to answer your question is your emotional state is your cue. When your emotions are off, that's an indicator that the way you're thinking about this problem, this person, this situation isn't aligned with where you want to go. And you need to do the cleanup before you even step into the room, before you talk to the other person, before you try to solve any kind of problem.
It sounds so easy, Kim. You make it sound so easy, and it's such a common sense consideration that you're sharing. And I am so appreciative of it, and I hope that our listeners are as well. And I am thinking through, okay, this sounds so easy. How the hell am I going to do it consistently?
Maybe you and I should talk after this call, but that's besides the point. For those of you who are listening, who find yourself in a situation where there's someone in your life that causes friction for you, right? One of the things you might want to do is experience a coaching call where someone is looking at your thinking and helping you create a little bit of alignment. So I invite you to come to frameofmindcoaching.com and sign up for a complimentary coaching call and experience what it's like to exactly that. Examine your thinking, examine how you see the world, and look at how your view may be contributing to the friction, and look at those, let's call them hidden beliefs that are causing this problem to be bigger than it really needs to be. So I invite you to do that. In the meantime, Tawnya, thank you so much for joining me. This was such a fun experience for me. So interesting, so fascinating. Thank you so much. How do people find you if they want to ask you a question or learn more about what you do?
Absolutely, Kim. And thank you. This has really been a treat and an absolute pleasure. And I'm just honored to have been considered for your podcast. If anyone would like to reach me, you can contact me at Tawnya, and that is TAWNYA.Starr, spelled with 2 R's, STARR, at firespring.com. Again, that's Tawnya.Starr at firespring.com, and I would love and welcome to hear from anyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim. Have a fantastic day, and may there be much success to all of our entrepreneurs.